I didn't go back to the farm because I wanted to. I went because there was no one else left alive to deal with it. My brother, Daniel, wrapped his truck around a birch tree on a wet Tuesday in October. The police said he died on impact. The photo in the report showed the front of his truck folded in half, the hood almost touching the windshield. I stared at the picture for a long time, trying to feel something. Mostly I felt tired. He was the last family member I had. Our parents were gone. Mom from a brain aneurysm when I was 19. Dad from some kind of infection he ignored for too long, the year after I moved out. I didn't go to the farm much after that. I lived in the city, worked in a warehouse, rented a small place above a nail salon. I drank too much and slept badly, and pretended that was just being an adult. The farm stayed where it was. 30 acres of tired land, a sagging old house, a barn with a rusted roof, and a long gravel driveway that chewed up tires. The kind of place people driving past might find charming if they only saw it from a distance, with the evening light doing most of the work. After Daniel's crash, a lawyer called. He said the property was in both our names, and now I was the only one on the deed. He talked about probate and taxes. He talked about debts. He asked what I wanted to do. Sell it, rent it, keep it. I told him I needed to go see it first. That was the first lie. I already knew I would never sell it. The second lie was the one I told myself, that I was going there to pack up, set things in order, and maybe put it on the market later. Deep down, I knew I'd been avoiding that place for years. Not because of the memories of my parents. Not really. I'd been avoiding it because of the woods behind the fields, and because I still sometimes dreamed about the well. The countryside looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd grown into something harder and meaner, and the place hadn't kept up. I drove out after work on a Friday, my car loaded with a suitcase, some tools, and the kind of groceries you buy when you're not sure if you're staying 3 days or 3 weeks. The highway gave way to 2-lane roads, then to narrow strips of asphalt lined with ditches and leaning mailboxes. The sky was low and gray, the kind that made everything look like it had a thin layer of dust on it. There wasn't much out there. A gas station with a broken sign, a diner, a church, a hardware store that looked exactly the same as when I was a kid, right down to the faded open sign that never seemed to light up. Same farms, same fields, same tired wooden fences leaning away from the wind. By the time I turned onto our old road, my chest felt tight. Not quite panic, just pressure, like something heavy was sitting on me. The road to the farm was narrower than I remembered. The gravel had given way to more dirt than stone, with weeds pushing through. Trees leaned in from both sides, skeletal branches scraping the roof of my car. My tires crunched and slipped. A crow watched from a fence post as I passed, then lifted off in a lazy flap of wings. When the house finally came into view around the bend, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It looked wrong. Not dramatically wrong, not burned or collapsed, just sagging, slumped. The white paint had peeled away in long curls. The porch railing was cracked. The front steps were missing a board. One of the upstairs windows had a spider web of cracks across it. Ivy climbed up one corner of the house, thick and dark. But it was still home. Or what was left of that idea. I parked in front, beside the old rusted-out tractor that hadn't moved in at least a decade. When I stepped out of the car, the chill air slapped my face. The smell hit a second later. Damp earth, old wood, and something faintly sour underneath. I stood there for a moment, keys in hand, listening. No cars, no voices, just the wind in the trees and some distant cows. A faint creak from the barn as the metal roof shifted. For a second I felt like I was the only person alive in 100 miles. Then a dog barked, far off. The spell broke. I climbed the stairs carefully. The missing board on the third step was just where I remembered, the gap darker than the rest. When I was 11, I'd pushed a frog through that hole, just to see. It never came back out. I sometimes still thought about that. The front door stuck before it opened. It scraped along the floor with a groan that echoed in the quiet. The sound made the hairs on my arms stand up. Inside smelled like stale air, dust, and something else I couldn't place. I stepped into the hallway, flicked the light switch by habit. Nothing. Of course not. I hadn't called the power company yet. I took my phone out and turned the flashlight on instead. The beam cut across the entryway. Coats hung on hooks, stiff with age. My father's work boots sat by the mat, one on its side. A dead fly lay on the floor, legs curled. Everything was like a snapshot from the day he died, just left to rot. I moved through the house, room by room, like I was walking through a museum of my own life. The kitchen table with its burn mark in the middle from when Daniel dropped a hot pan. The living room couch where Mom used to fall asleep with a book on her chest. The TV, dust-covered. The rabbit ear antenna bent. The hallway with the family photos still hanging crooked. My old room was almost empty. I'd taken most of my things when I moved out. What was left made me feel worse than if it had been bare. A cracked baseball trophy. A shoebox full of cassette tapes. A faded poster on the wall. Corners curled. The mattress sagged in the middle. A dead wasp lay on the windowsill. In Daniel's room it was different. There were clothes strewn around, empty beer cans by the bed, a cracked phone screen on the nightstand. He had lived here until the day he died. His smell still clung to the place under the dust and decay. Sweat, cigarettes, engine oil. I stood in his room for a long time. His bed was unmade, the blanket tangled. There was a dent in the pillow where his head must have rested. I imagined him getting up, pulling on his jeans, grabbing his keys and wallet, walking out the door, not knowing it was the last time. On his desk, I found the police report about Dad's death, folded and creased, with a half-finished beer stain on it. Under that, another paper, older and yellowed. The header was from the county sheriff's department. I didn't remember seeing it before. Missing person report. Andrew Keller. The name didn't mean anything to me at first. Then I saw the date. 15 years ago. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I didn't look at the missing person report right away. I told myself I was too tired from the drive. I walked back to the car, hauled in my suitcase and the grocery bags, set things on the kitchen counter. I filled a pot from the tap, let it run for a while until the water went from brown to clear. The pipes groaned like they hadn't been used in years. I made instant noodles on the gas stove and ate them standing at the sink, looking out the window toward the backyard. The field stretched out behind the house, broken up by patches of scrub and rocks. Beyond that, the tree line, the woods, dark even in daylight. They spread up over a low hill, then dropped away out of sight. I knew those trees had paths and clearings, and a small creek running through them. I knew there was a rusted wire fence somewhere, half fallen over. I knew there were animal tracks and thorn bushes, and somewhere, the old well covered by rotten boards. I also knew there were things buried out there that weren't from nature. I swallowed the last of the noodles, rinsed the bowl, and set it aside. I told myself I was being dramatic, that I was just letting old childhood fears creep back in, now that I was in the house again. That the things I remembered weren't as clear as I thought. Memories bend. They warp with time. Kids misunderstand things adults do. That's what I'd been telling myself for years. I turned away from the window and went back to Daniel's room. The missing person report lay on his desk where I'd left it. I picked it up. There was a photo clipped to the top. A man in his late 20s or early 30s. Dark hair, straight nose, narrow eyes. He was looking sideways at the camera, like he hadn't known someone was taking his picture. His expression was hard to read. Not happy, not sad, just there. Below the photo there was the usual stuff. Height, weight, last known location, departed residence on County Road 7, believed to be hitchhiking toward the city. Last seen wearing green jacket, jeans, work boots. Reported missing by employer after failure to arrive for 3 consecutive shifts. No close family located in area. Near the bottom, a handwritten note had been added in blue ink. Reported sighting near Miller Farm, approximately 3 days after disappearance. Unconfirmed. Miller Farm was ours. I read that line 3 times. A memory tried to surface, like something moving underwater. I frowned and pressed my fingers to my forehead. My pulse thudded in my temples. Miller Farm. A missing man. Reported near us. 15 years ago, I would have been 10 or 11. Daniel would have been 14 or 15. Maybe there had been news about a missing guy. Maybe a police cruiser had come down the driveway. Maybe. It didn't feel solid in my head. Just haze. On the back of the report there were notes, some written by hand, some stamped. No activity on credit cards. No further sightings. Case status, inactive. Below that, in a different pen, another line in Daniel's messy handwriting. Ask Mark about this. My name underlined twice. I stared at the words until they blurred. Ask Mark about this. I tried to drag up anything. I knew the name Andrew tickled something in my memory, but it was like chasing smoke. I dropped the report on the desk. It landed with a small slap of paper on wood. In the hallway, the house creaked. Old houses do that. I knew this. But the sound made the back of my neck prickle. I decided I wasn't going to sleep in my old room or in Daniel's that night. Somehow both felt wrong. I didn't want to lie down where I used to lie in high school, or in the bed my brother had left unmade on the day he died. So I pulled the old pull-out couch open in the living room. The metal frame squealed. The mattress smelled like dust and mice. I covered it with a clean sheet from the closet and lay down in my clothes. The silence pressed in. The wind shifted outside. The barn creaked again. Something small skittered in the walls. I turned on my side, facing the window. I could see a sliver of the yard, a slice of sky. It was cloudy, with no moon to speak of. Just a dark smear. That's when I heard a noise from the back of the house. Distant, muffled, a dull thud, like something heavy being dropped on dirt. I held my breath and listened. Nothing. Then another thud. Closer. I told myself it was an animal. A deer knocking into the fence, maybe. Or a cow from the neighbor's pasture that had wandered too far. But the sound came again. A dragging scrape this time, like wood on earth. Then another thump. My heart sped up. I sat up on the couch, listening hard. I didn't want to turn on my phone light. That felt like it would admit I was scared. There was another sound. A rough, wet cough. That one I hadn't expected. Without thinking, I swung my legs over the side of the couch and stood up. My head felt light. I walked softly to the kitchen, every floorboard creak sounding like a gunshot to me. The back door had a small window at the top. I went up to it and peered out, trying to let my eyes adjust. At first I couldn't see anything but shapes. The shed, the mangled fence, the empty clothesline. But then, near the edge of the yard where the grass turned to rough weeds, I saw movement. A figure. Someone hunched over, their shape broken up by the darkness. They were down on their knees, facing away from the house. Their shoulders were moving, like they were digging, or maybe vomiting. I felt my stomach twist. "Hello?" I called out before I could stop myself. The figure froze. The shoulders stiffened. Slowly, the head turned, just enough that I could see a slice of face in profile. It was a man. Short hair. Jacket. A pale cheek smudged with dirt or something darker. We stared at each other through the glass for a second. My pulse was hammering so loud I could barely hear. Then he stood up. He swayed a little, then straightened. His movements were slow, like he was exhausted. He took one step toward the house, then another. I stepped back from the door. He was heading straight for me. I don't know why I opened the door. Maybe because this was the countryside and that's what people did when a stranger came to the house. Maybe because he didn't look like someone who could overpower me. He looked more like someone who'd already been through hell. His clothes were soaked. At first I thought it was water, but the smell that hit me when I cracked the door open told me it wasn't just rain. It was blood. "Jesus," I said before I could stop myself. He stood there, swaying slightly on his feet, looking at me with glassy, unfocused eyes. He was in his 30s, maybe. Dark hair plastered to his forehead. There were red smears on his face, on his jacket, on his hands. Some of it was dry and brown. Some of it looked fresh, still wet, shining in the weak light from the kitchen. "Help," he said. Just that one word. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. My first thought wasn't that he was dangerous. It was that he was hurt. That something terrible had happened to him out there. A car crash. A hunting accident. A fight. "Are you injured?" I asked. "Do you need an ambulance?" He blinked slowly. His gaze moved past me, into the kitchen, as if he was trying to remember something. "I don't know," he said. He swallowed. His throat clicked. I think I lost something. He looked down at his hands like he'd just seen them for the first time. There was something clutched in his right fist. A crumpled bit of fabric, maybe. Dark and wet. You're bleeding, I said. My voice sounded too loud in my own ears. You need to come inside. Sit down. I stepped back, opening the door wider. He hesitated for a moment, like there was an invisible line on the threshold. Then he shuffled forward. His boots left faint red marks on the porch boards. As he passed me, I smelled metal and dirt and something rank underneath, like old meat left out in the sun. I fought the urge to gag. He moved into the kitchen and leaned on the table, breathing harder. Up close, I could see cuts on his hands, small and shallow. None of them looked bad enough to make that much blood. Sit, I said. Here. I pulled out a chair. He sank into it with a long exhale. I grabbed some paper towels from the counter and handed them to him. He stared at them for a beat, then pressed them to his hands. The towels bloomed red. What happened? I asked. Were you in a car accident? He shook his head once, slowly. No car, he said. I walked. From where? He looked at me then, eyes focusing a little more. There was something in his gaze I didn't like. Not anger, not fear. Something like confusion wrapped around a hard core of flatness. The woods, he said. I swallowed. There's a town about 10 miles back, I said. Did you come from there? We should call the police, or an ambulance. You might be in shock. At the word police, his jaw tightened briefly. No police, he said. Please. If you're hurt. I'm not hurt, he snapped suddenly. His voice boomed in the quiet kitchen. Then he winced and lowered it again. Not like that. It's not my blood. That made me take a step back without meaning to. He saw. His mouth twitched. They're dead, he said. Out there, I think. My skin went cold. Who is dead? I asked. He stared past me again, at the window over the sink that faced the dark backyard. His pupils looked too big. All of them, he said. He blinked slowly, like he was replaying something in his mind. The woman, he said. The man. The boy. I felt like the floor shifted under me. The boy? I asked. My voice sounded thin. What boy? He didn't answer that. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, I didn't mean to. I don't think I meant to. You killed them? He flinched like I'd slapped him. I tried to help, he said. He put his head in his hands. The paper towels crumpled and dropped to the floor with a wet splat. It was already bad when I got there. It was already bad. Blood streaked his hair as he dragged his fingers through it. My mind felt like it was moving too fast and too slow at the same time. I should have been reaching for my phone. I should have been calling someone. The police. An ambulance. Anyone. Instead, I just stood there. Who are you? I asked. He looked up at me. There was a small cut on his cheekbone I hadn't noticed before. A bead of blood trembled there. Andrew, he said. Andrew Keller. The room tilted. I had seen that name earlier that day on the report in Daniel's room. 15 years old, missing, considered inactive. "You can't be," I said. "That man disappeared 15 years ago." He frowned. "What?" "Andrew Keller went missing a long time ago," I said. "They never found him." He stared at me hard, as if he could force me to make sense. Then his gaze flicked to the calendar on the wall, a cheap paper thing that Daniel must have gotten from the feed store. He squinted at the year printed under the months, his face drained of what little color it had. "No," he whispered. "That's..." He swallowed. "That's not right." He stood up so suddenly his chair scraped loud against the floor. My muscles tensed. I took another step back. Andrew stumbled toward the back door. His boots left more red marks on the linoleum. He pressed his hands to the glass, peering out into the backyard like he expected to see something very specific and was terrified it wouldn't be there. "The trailer," he said under his breath. "The fire pit. He shook his head, hard. "There's nothing back there," I said. "Just the shed and some trees." He turned to look at me. His eyes were wild now. "It was here," he said. "Right here. The trailer. The old camper. The one with the blue stripe. It was right here." His voice cracked on the last word. I tried to picture it. An old camper in the backyard. There had been something like that once, hadn't there? When I was very young. A small, sun-faded thing my father kept some tools in. But he'd sold it or moved it or scrapped it when I was 8 or 9. I couldn't remember exactly. "How long have you been in the woods, Andrew?" I asked slowly. He stared at me like he didn't understand the question. I tried again. "What's the last date you remember?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His forehead creased. He looked back at the calendar, then at his bloody hands. "A week," he said finally. "Maybe. It can't have been more than that. I was at the diner, and then I got in his truck, and then we were out here, and then..." He stopped talking abruptly. His jaw clenched. "In whose truck?" I asked. He didn't answer. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a deep hole, looking down. Something was stirring at the bottom of it. Something from years ago. From when I was 10. From the woods. From the well. I don't know when I started remembering that night exactly. The pieces had always been there, scattered and dull. Things I thought were nightmares. Things I dismissed. But standing in the kitchen with Andrew in his bloody clothes and his confusion, something in my head shifted. A door I'd held shut for years rattled on its hinges. I could smell damp leaves again, and gasoline. I could hear my father's voice, low and tight. I could hear screaming. I rubbed my forehead, trying to chase the images away. It didn't work. They only sharpened. "I need you to tell me what happened," I said. "From the beginning." He looked at me for a long moment, like he was trying to decide if I was worth trusting, or maybe like he was trying to decide if I was even real. Then he sank back into the chair. The legs creaked. "I was on the highway," he said, "by the truck stop. I'd been working there, washing dishes. My boss let me go, said there wasn't enough work. I was trying to get to the city. I thought I could find something else there. He wiped his face with the back of his wrist, smearing more red across his skin. It was late, he went on. I'd been standing by the on-ramp with my thumb out for hours. A few cars passed. Nobody stopped. I was about to give up and walk back when an old pickup pulled over. He stared at the table. His eyes were unfocused again, like he was looking at something only he could see. He looked like any other guy from around here, Andrew said. Work jacket, cap, beard. He asked where I was headed. I told him. He laughed and said, "I can get you part of the way. Hop in." I pictured my father's old pickup, the rust around the wheel wells, the torn seat, the smell of fertilizer and cigarettes. My stomach turned. What did he look like? I asked. My voice felt tight. Andrew shrugged slightly. I don't know. Average. Older than me by 20 years maybe. Strong hands. Bit of a belly. Eyes like... He frowned. You know when someone's friendly but there's nothing behind it? Like they're just putting on a mask so you don't look too close? Like that. He looked up at me suddenly. You look a bit like him, he said. Around the eyes. The hair on my arms rose. We drove for a while, Andrew continued. Talked about nothing. The weather. Work. He asked if I had family around here. I said no. That I'd come from out west. That I was on my own. He swallowed. That's when his mood changed, Andrew said. Not a lot. Just a bit. He got quieter. He mimed gripping a steering wheel. His knuckles went white. He turned off the highway sooner than I expected, he said. Onto a smaller road. Said he knew a shortcut. I didn't think much of it. I didn't know the area. He glanced toward the window again. We came down this road, he said. I recognize it now. The trees. The turn by the broken fence. The way it curves before the house. My throat felt dry. He parked out back, Andrew said. By the trailer. Said he needed to grab something. Asked if I minded. I said okay. I was just glad to be moving. His voice got flatter. He went inside the house for a bit. Left me sitting in the truck. I thought about just getting out and walking back to the road, but I told myself that would be rude. Stupid, right? He gave a short, humorless laugh. He came back with a beer, Andrew went on. Handed it to me. Said it was for the road. We'd be heading off in a minute. I was thirsty. I took it. It tasted funny, but cheap beer often does. He rubbed at his temple. Next thing I remember clearly, I was on the floor of the trailer, he said. The room seemed to shrink around us. My hands were tied behind my back with something rough, he said. Rope or cord. My head hurt. My mouth was dry. He was standing over me. He had a knife. He was talking. I could hear my father's voice again in my memories, muffled and low through walls and distance. The trailer half hidden behind the shed. The light under its door at night. The times we were told to stay out of it. What did he say? I asked. My own voice sounded strange to me. Andrew's eyes darted around, like he was reading words off invisible walls. He said nobody would miss me, he said. That there were too many people in the world already. That he was doing me a favor. That he'd seen how tired I looked. He swallowed. He talked about mercy, Andrew said. The word made something twist in my chest. I had heard my father say that word in that same tone, years ago, about a sick calf he had to put down. He said sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop their suffering, Andrew said, even if they don't see it that way. He said the world chews people up and spits them out, that he was just speeding it up. He looked down at his bloody hands. He cut me, Andrew said. Not deep at first, just testing, seeing how I reacted. He liked it when people begged. He said that it proved he was right about them, that they were weak. A buzzing sound filled my ears. For a second, I thought I was going to pass out. The trailer door opened, Andrew said. A kid came in. My spine went rigid. A boy, Andrew said. 10, maybe, stretching to look older. He had your eyes, too. He stood in the doorway and looked at me. Then he looked at the man. He seemed unsure, like he didn't fully understand what was going on but knew it was bad. He glanced at me. I didn't want him to see, Andrew said. I told the man to let him go, to send him away. The man laughed, said the boy had to learn, that this was important. My heart hammered. He told the kid to hold the knife, Andrew said. Said he'd show him where to cut. The boy didn't want to. He held his hands behind his back. The man got angry. He told him not to be ungrateful. His gaze blurred. He grabbed the boy's wrist, Andrew said. He put the knife in his hand. He wrapped his own hand around it. He dragged it down my arm. I screamed. The boy cried. The man laughed. Andrew's jaw clenched. His shoulders shook once. It went on for a while, he said. I lost track of time. At some point the boy ran out. I heard the door bang. The man cursed. He hit me a few times. Then he left too. I heard him yelling outside. The trailer shook when he slammed the door. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled. I thought that was it, he said. That he'd come back and finish it. That I'd die on that filthy floor with my own blood soaking into it. His eyes locked onto mine. But then you came back, he said. The room felt colder suddenly. What do you mean? I asked. I didn't even live here 15 years ago. It was a stupid lie. My voice wobbled. Andrew just looked at me. You were smaller, he said. Your hair was longer. You had on a striped shirt. You were shaking so hard you could barely untie the knots. I felt like I was falling. I remember your hands, Andrew said. Small and clumsy, but you kept trying. You cut the rope with a little pocket knife. You dropped it twice. You were crying the whole time. You kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. My knees felt weak. I gripped the back of a chair. You got me loose, he said. You helped me stand. You told me we didn't have much time, that he was in the house, that he was drunk, that sometimes he fell asleep in his chair if he had enough. You told me about the path through the woods, the one that led to the old well. You said nobody goes back there. He swallowed. You had a plan, Andrew said. I could tell you'd been thinking about it for a long time. Maybe not about me specifically, just in general. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You said we'd go through the woods, he said. Quietly, no flashlight. You said we'd pass the well, then cut across to the old fence and come out by the road. We could get help from the next farm. I could see it in my head now. The path, the way the trees closed in, the smell of damp earth, my small hand in a grown man's bloody one. "We almost made it," Andrew said. My chest hurt. "He followed us," Andrew said. "I don't know how. Maybe he woke up. Maybe he never really slept. Maybe he heard us stumble. He always said the woods talked to him. Maybe they did." He was staring past me again, into some middle distance only he could see. "We heard a branch snap," Andrew said. "You froze. I froze. Then he was just there, out of the dark, like he'd grown out of the trees." He gave a bitter smile. "He had a shotgun," Andrew said, pointed at my chest. "He told you to step away from me. You didn't move at first. You were shaking so hard I thought you might just collapse. He yelled your name. That snapped you out of it. You let go of my hand. You stumbled back toward him, like he'd yanked you on a leash." My stomach lurched. "He told you I was dangerous," Andrew said, "that I was insane, that I'd killed people before, that he was trying to protect you, that you'd just made a mistake bringing me out here." His fingers curled into fists. "You shook your head," Andrew said. "You said that wasn't true. You said you'd seen things, that you knew what he was doing in that trailer. You begged him to let me go." He looked down. "He hit you," Andrew said. "Backhanded you across the face. You fell. Hit your head on a rock. You went quiet." Something behind my eyes throbbed. A deep, old ache. "I thought he'd shot me next," Andrew said. "But he didn't. He walked toward me with the shotgun low. He smiled. I'd never seen someone look so calm and so empty at the same time." Andrew's voice went softer. "He told me this was my fault," he said. "That if I just died quietly in the trailer, his kid would still respect him. That you'd still believe he knew what was best. That everything had been fine until I came along and started putting ideas in your head." He laughed once, short. "He told me to get on my knees," Andrew said. "Said he'd make it quick if I didn't fight." His hand went to his chest, fingers pressing like he could still feel the shotgun barrel there. "I thought about running," he said. "But where would I go? He was between me and the path. The woods were thick on either side, and you were lying there in the leaves, not moving." He swallowed. "Then he did something," Andrew said. "Something I still don't understand." He looked at me. "He put the shotgun down," he said. "He leaned it against a tree. He pulled out the knife instead. The same one from the trailer." My skin crawled. "He said he wanted to do this up close," Andrew said. "That it meant more that way. That mercy should be personal." My father's word again. Mercy. "I thought that was it," Andrew said. "I'd die there and nobody would ever know what happened." He stepped closer. He raised the knife. His hand shot out suddenly, gripping the air as if holding an invisible wrist. "And then you were just there," he said. He stared at me, eyes wide. "You weren't moving a second before," he said. "I swear you weren't. You were on the ground. Then you were standing. You had the shotgun in your hands." My heart hammered so hard it hurt. "I still don't know how you did it," Andrew said. "Maybe he put it too close to you. Maybe he was so sure you wouldn't dare touch it that he didn't think. His voice dropped. "You pulled the trigger," he said. The memory hit me like a physical blow. 1 second I was standing in that dim kitchen, listening to a blood-soaked stranger tell a story. The next second I was 10 years old again, the world too big and too loud, the smell of damp leaves burning my nose. The shotgun was heavy. Too heavy. My arms shook with the strain. My cheek pressed against the woodstock. My finger was on the trigger. I hadn't even meant to put it there. It just happened. My father turned toward me, slow. His eyes widened, but not in fear, more in surprise, like he couldn't believe I'd picked up something he'd told me never to touch. "Mark," he said. That was all. I don't know if he meant to say more. If he did, he never got the chance. The recoil slammed into my shoulder like a truck. The sound was so loud it chewed up everything else. For a second there was nothing but white and ringing. When the world snapped back, my father was on the ground, and there was blood everywhere. It soaked into the leaves. It smeared on tree bark. It splashed my shoes, my hands, my face. His chest was a ruin. I remember thinking the inside of him looked wrong. Too dark. Too wet. I dropped the shotgun. It fell on my foot. I didn't feel it. My ears were still ringing. I was screaming. Or maybe that was someone else. Andrew. The man from the trailer. He was shouting something. His voice sounded far away. I stumbled backward. My foot slipped on something soft. A piece of my father. My stomach lurched. I turned and vomited. When I straightened, Andrew was kneeling beside my father, his hands hovering over the mess, not touching. "He's dead," he said. His voice was flat. I knew that. Even at 10, I knew what dead looked like. I started crying so hard I couldn't breathe. My whole body shook. My teeth chattered. "They'll blame us," I said. I don't know how I knew that either. I just did. Andrew looked up at me. His eyes were too bright. "You didn't mean to," he said. "He was going to kill me." "They'll blame us," I repeated. "They'll say I'm a murderer. They'll lock me up. You too." He looked down at my father again, at the blood. "How far is the nearest neighbor?" he asked. I thought about that. The Andersons were a few miles down the road. The other way was just more empty land. 10 minutes by car, I said. An hour if you run. He was quiet for a moment. "Can you carry that shotgun?" he asked. I looked at it. It lay on the ground where I'd dropped it, the barrel smeared with blood. I nodded weakly. He stood up, swaying. "Listen to me," he said. "This is important." His voice had gone very calm. Too calm. He told me what we had to do. In the kitchen, 15 years later, I gripped the back of the chair so hard my knuckles went white. "You remember now," Andrew said quietly. It wasn't a question. I nodded, throat too tight to speak. "We dragged him," Andrew said. "Together. We grabbed his arms and pulled. It was hard. He was heavy. Dead weight. He left a trail on the ground. Blood and other things. I remembered the feel of my father's jacket under my fingers. the way his head bounced a bit over roots and rocks, the way his boots caught on sticks. We took him to the well, Andrew said. You knew the way without thinking. You'd been back there before. Lots of times, I think. I had. Not always with him. Sometimes alone. Sometimes I'd drop rocks down the well and listen for the splash. Sometimes I'd just sit on its edge and think about how deep it was. My father had told me it was dangerous, that I could fall in and never get out. Then he'd laughed. It was covered with boards, Andrew said, rotten and warped, nailed together in a weak crosshatch. He must have put them there himself. I nodded again. My mouth tasted like metal. We rolled him onto them, Andrew said. They sagged under the weight. One cracked. For a second I thought the whole thing would collapse and he'd just fall through. But they held. He looked down at his hands. We needed something heavier, he said. You said there were cinder blocks by the shed. We went and got them, carried them back. My arms were shaking so badly I dropped one. It landed on his leg. I don't know why that's the part I can't stop seeing. I remembered that. The sound his shin bone made when the block hit it. A hard, dull crack. My stomach flipped. We tied the blocks to him with rope, Andrew said. Around his waist, his legs. The knots were messy, but they held. Then we pried up the boards one by one. He swallowed. The smell coming out of that well, he said. Jesus. It was a thick, sweet rot. Not just old water and moss. Something worse. Something I didn't have words for as a kid. I still didn't really. When we pulled the last board aside, the darkness inside the well looked solid, like a hole cut out of the world. We pushed him in, Andrew said. There's no nicer way to say it. We had to rock him back and forth. The blocks clanked against the stones. The rope creaked. I remember my hands slipping on his jacket, leaving bloody streaks. He tipped over the edge and disappeared. There was a long moment with no sound at all. Then a distant splash. We stood there panting, looking down. I couldn't see anything in the black. Just my own pale reflection on the water far below. Andrew put his hand on my shoulder. It left a bloody print on my shirt. You told me to run, he said quietly. You said you'd go back to the house, clean what you could, make it look like he'd gone somewhere. Maybe they'd think he just left. I remembered that too. The stunned, numb certainty that I could fix it. That if I just worked hard enough, scrubbed well enough, nobody would know. I ran back to the house. I didn't look at the trailer. I went in through the back door. The hallway smelled of smoke and beer and my father. I washed my hands in the sink, scrubbing until the water ran pink. I changed my shirt. I took his wallet and keys from the hook. Then I started cleaning. I scrubbed the blood off the kitchen floor where he'd tracked it in earlier. I wiped down the back steps. I cleaned my shoes in the bathroom sink. I burned my shirt in the fire pit. I took his truck down the road, left it in a ditch half a mile away like it had just broken down. I walked back. I put his jacket on a chair like he'd just taken it off. I moved like a machine. I didn't think about what I was doing. I just did it. By the time the sun started to lighten the sky, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal in front of me, staring at nothing. I never saw Andrew again. Until now. I waited, he said, by the road like you told me, for hours. I thought you'd come, that we'd go to the next farm together, that we'd make up some story. I didn't know yet how bad a story it really was. He frowned. But you never came, he said. I tried to walk. I got as far as the old fence before I started feeling strange, like my head wasn't attached right. Lights in the corners of my eyes. My legs kept giving out. He rubbed his temples. I remember lying down, he said. The ground was damp. There were leaves under my cheek. I heard something in the distance. Maybe a siren. Maybe just the wind. Then everything went dark. He looked at his bloody hands again. I woke up in the woods, he said. I don't know how long later. My watch was gone. My clothes were stiff. I couldn't tell if it was morning or night. The trees all looked the same. He laughed, a sharp broken sound. I thought it had been a few hours, he said. A day at most. I started walking. I kept ending up back at the same places. I'd see the same stump, the same rock. I started to think I was going in circles. He swallowed. I found them yesterday, he said. Or, I thought it was yesterday. Found who? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. He lifted his hands slightly, letting the drying blood crack. The family, he said. There's a certain kind of fear that feels almost abstract, a cold idea in the mind. Then there's the other kind that slams into your body so hard you feel like throwing up. I felt the second kind. What family? I asked. The words came out barely above a whisper. There's a trailer in the woods, Andrew said. Not the same as before, a newer one, white with green trim. It's parked in a small clearing. There's a fire pit out front, clothesline, a couple of plastic chairs. I pictured it. The woods weren't ours alone. People sometimes parked campers in them. Hunters. Families who couldn't afford a proper park. Drifters. I heard crying, Andrew said. That's what drew me. A kid's cry. Thin. Worn out. Not the first time by the sound of it. His eyes went distant again. I went toward it, he said. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Stupidity. Some part of me still thought I could help. That I could do it right this time. He gave a small, bitter smile. The trailer door was half open, he said. There was light inside. A lantern, maybe. I could see shapes. A woman on the floor. Her hair was spread out like a pool. A man slumped against the wall. Something wrong with the angle of his neck. His voice grew quieter. There was a boy, he said. 12 maybe. Sitting in the corner. Knees to his chest. Rocking. His hands were tied in front of him. His face was wet. He kept making this sound. He made a small, choking noise that sounded too much like a child trying not to sob. I stepped inside, Andrew said. The smell hit me first. Copper and shit and something else. Fear, if that has a smell. The boy looked at me like I was a ghost, or a monster. He swallowed. I untied him, he said. He fought at first. Thought I was going to hurt him. I kept saying, it's okay. You're safe now. I don't know why I said that. I had no way to make it true. He rubbed his face with both hands, smearing blood. I asked him what happened. Andrew said. He said a man came. Asked his parents if he could park his truck on their property while he hunted. Said he'd pay them a little. They said yes. He came back the next night with beer. They drank. He laughed. He helped fix a broken step on the trailer. Andrew's voice went flat. He came back a third time with a shotgun, he said. He tied them up, all three of them. He talked about mercy. He talked about how the world chews people up. He talked about doing them a favor. My vision tunneled. He said he'd learned from his father, Andrew said, that his old man had the right idea, that you can't save everyone, but you can stop them from suffering. I felt like my legs might give out. I grabbed the back of the chair again and held on. You helped the boy, I said mechanically. You got him out. Andrew shook his head slowly. I untied him, he said. I told him we had to go. But the man was still there. He looked at me. You know who it was, he said. Don't you? I did. I had known from the moment he started talking about mercy. Daniel, my brother. He was in the bathroom, Andrew said, washing his hands, humming, like this was just cleaning up after a meal. I heard the water running. I heard him whistle. He closed his eyes briefly. The boy saw a knife on the counter, Andrew said. He grabbed it. His hands were shaking so hard I thought he'd cut himself. He ran at the bathroom door. He was small, but rage does something. He hit it hard. It swung open. He drew in a shaky breath. I followed, he said. I don't know what I meant to do. Help, maybe. Stop him from doing something he couldn't take back. Or maybe help him do exactly that. I'm not sure anymore. He opened his eyes. When we got there, he said, the man was already falling. The kitchen seemed too quiet. The wind outside had died. The fridge clicked once and fell silent. The boy had stabbed him, Andrew said, in the neck, clumsy but deep. Blood sprayed the wall, the mirror, the ceiling, the boy's face. He wiped his own cheek unconsciously, as if smearing away something that wasn't there. The man clutched at his throat, Andrew said. He looked at me. For a second I thought he saw someone else. Maybe his father. Maybe you. I don't know. Then he went down. He paused. The boy kept stabbing, Andrew said. He screamed while he did it, high and raw. He didn't stop, even when the man stopped moving. I had to pull him away. He spread his hands. There was no mercy in that, he said. Just fury. I swallowed. What about the parents? I asked. Andrew's jaw tightened. Too late, he said. Throats cut. The woman's hands were still tied. The man's legs were still moving when I got to him, but his eyes were already gone. No focus. Just empty. He took a deep breath. I told the boy we had to leave, Andrew said, but he wouldn't blink. The knife was still in his hand. I pried it away. His skin was slick. He wouldn't let go. He looked down at his own hands again. I took the knife, he said. I don't even know why I kept it. Habit, stupidity. Something about that blade. It felt familiar. He shuddered. I led the boy out, he said. We stepped into the clearing. The air felt cold after the heat in the trailer. The sky looked wrong. Too many stars. He rubbed at his eyes. I told him we'd find help, he said, that there had to be a road nearby, but he wouldn't move. He just stood there barefoot in the dirt. His toes were red. He looked at the trailer and said, "They're not going to wake up, are they?" Andrew swallowed hard. I told him no, he said. He nodded once. Then he turned and walked back inside. He laughed once, bitter. I thought he just wanted to say goodbye, he said. One last look. I let him go. I stayed outside. I stared at the trees. I thought about the well, about your father, about all the time between. He stared at the table. Then I smelled gasoline, he said. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I went after him, Andrew said. The lantern was tipped over. Gas was splashed on the floor. The boy was by the small stove, fumbling with matches. His hand shook as if remembering the movement. I shouted, he said. He looked at me like he didn't know who I was, like I was another threat. He struck the match. He closed his eyes. It was so fast, he said. The gas caught with a whoomph. The fire ran along the floor like it was alive. It climbed the walls. It reached the curtains. The whole trailer became a box of heat and flame. The boy just stood there, staring at his parents' bodies. The match burned down to his fingers. He didn't even flinch. His voice was small. I grabbed him, Andrew said. I dragged him toward the door. The smoke made my eyes water. I could barely see. He fought me, tried to pull back. I slipped in the blood, or maybe the gas. I fell. He fell. I lost hold of him. His shoulders sagged. I don't know how I got out, he said. I remember crawling, hands and knees. My skin felt like it was boiling. My lungs burned. I coughed and coughed. I hit the dirt outside and kept crawling until I couldn't feel the heat anymore. He opened his eyes. When I looked back, the trailer was an orange box, he said. Black smoke pouring out the windows. I couldn't see the boy. I tried to go back. A beam fell near the doorway. Flames reached out like hands. I didn't try hard enough. That's the part that keeps eating at me. He stared at nothing. I must have fainted, he said. When I woke up, it was dark. The trailer was just a black shape. It smelled like burned meat. I threw up. Then I started walking. He held out his hands, palms up, like a man showing the evidence of a crime he didn't quite understand. I ended up here, he said, in your yard, at your back door. We were both silent for a while. It was a lot to take in. Too much. Part of me wanted to reject the whole thing, to say he was lying, crazy, delusional, that my brother wouldn't do something like that my father couldn't have been what he said, that I couldn't have done what he remembered. But the problem with lying is that it only works when you don't already know the truth. I had always known something was wrong out here, not in clear words, in the way I flinched at certain sounds, in the ways I avoided the woods, in the gaps in my memory. Kids forget things. Adults help them forget. They call it moving on. They call it healing. Sometimes they're just burying bodies in another way. It took me a long time to move. My legs felt like wood, looking tired. Maybe this time, he said. I don't think I can keep stumbling into these stories and not tell anyone about them. He gave a short, bitter laugh. I'm getting too old for this, he added. Even if I apparently stopped aging for a decade and a half. That made me frown. What? I asked. He gestured at his face. You said I went missing 15 years ago, he said. How old did I look in the report? I thought of the photo, the one on Daniel's desk. The man in it didn't look much younger than the man sitting in front of me now. About the same, I said slowly. He nodded once, like that confirmed something he already suspected. I don't think time works right out there, he said. In the woods, around that well, around whatever your father did. I don't know how. I'm not smart enough for the details. I just know I've lost years I don't remember, and the calendar says they happened. He took a deep breath. But that's for someone else to figure out, he said. Scientists, cops, priests. I don't care. I just want to stop seeing dead families every time I close my eyes. He shuddered. I'm so tired, he said quietly. I believed him. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My hand shook a little as I unlocked it. No service. Of course not. We never got much out here. You had to drive toward town for a signal. I'll use the landline, I said, if it still works. There was an old phone on the wall by the fridge. Beige plastic, the cord twisted. I lifted the receiver. There was a dial tone. That surprised me. I hesitated a second, then dialed 9, then 1, then 1. A woman's voice answered. Calm, practiced. Emergency services. What's your emergency? I looked at Andrew, sitting at my kitchen table, his clothes stiff with other people's blood. I looked at my own hands, pale and empty. My name is Mark Miller, I said. I'm at my family farm on Old Quarry Road. There's been multiple deaths, I think. The dispatcher's tone shifted. Can you tell me what happened, Mark? A man came to my house, I said. He says there's a trailer in the woods with bodies in it. A family. A man. A woman. A boy. I swallowed. And I think my brother might be there too, I added. There was a pause. Is the man still with you? She asked. The one who told you this? Yes, I said. His name is Andrew Keller. He says he went missing 15 years ago. Another small pause. Are you in immediate danger? She asked. I looked at Andrew. He met my eyes. There was no threat in his face, just exhaustion. I don't think so, I said. But please come. Quickly. We're sending a unit now, she said. Stay on the line with me, okay? I did. I gave her directions. I repeated things twice when my head got fuzzy. She kept me talking. Asked me about injuries, about weapons, about whether there was fire. I told her what I knew, which wasn't much. When I hung up, the kitchen felt even quieter. They're coming, I said. Andrew nodded slowly. Good, he said. He sounded relieved. Maybe they can find what's left. We sat there for a while without speaking. The wind picked up again. It rattled a loose gutter. Somewhere in the walls, a mouse scratched. I thought about Daniel, about his broken truck wrapped around that tree, about the missing person report he'd kept on his desk with my name scrawled on it. Ask Mark about this. I thought about what Andrew had said, about a man in the woods talking about mercy, about learning from his father, about a knife in a small boy's hand 15 years ago. I thought about the well. I realized something then that made my stomach flip. If the trailer is in the woods, I said slowly, near the old fence, that's close to the well. Andrew frowned. Maybe, he said. I'm not sure. The trees all look the same. They buried him, I said. Who? He asked. I looked at him. My father, I said. We put him in the well. We covered it. We left it. Nobody ever found him. Andrew's face twisted. He looked like he'd bitten into something rotten. We should show them, he said. The police? I asked. He nodded. All of it. Not just the trailer. Not just your brother. Him too. The thought of going back there made my skin crawl. But he was right. It was time. The wail of sirens reached us then, faint at first, then louder. Blue and red lights flickered between the trees at the end of the drive. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but they held. Andrew didn't move. You're not coming? I asked. He shook his head slightly. I will, he said. Just not yet. I need a minute. I hesitated. They're going to want to talk to you, I said. I know, he said. I'll be here. He gave me a faint, crooked smile. I'm not the one you should be worried about, he said. I stepped toward the front of the house. As I reached the hallway, I heard him call my name softly. Mark. I looked back. You did what you had to do, he said. Back then, you were a kid. He gave you a choice no kid should have. It wasn't your fault. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat felt like it was clamped shut. I turned away and went out to meet the flashing lights. The next hours came in fragments. A police cruiser in the driveway. 2 officers, one older, one younger, hands near their holsters as they stepped out. Their eyes scanning, their boots crunching on gravel. Me standing in the porch light, feeling like a ghost. Questions asked, names given. Andrew brought out from the kitchen, blinking in the sudden brightness when they turned a flashlight on him. His hands raised, palms showing, fingers shaking. Don't shoot, he said. And for a moment he sounded like a child. Plastic cuffs, a blanket draped around his shoulders, the smell of blood filling the cold air. More cars, an ambulance, paramedics checking his wounds, my pulse, everyone's vitals, radios crackling, footsteps, voices, then the walk into the woods. There were 6 of us, 2 officers in front, 1 behind, me and Andrew in the middle, a paramedic bringing up the rear. Flashlights cut through the dark, turning the trees into stark bars of black and white. Show us the trailer, the older officer said. Andrew led. He moved like he knew where he was going now, like the path had settled in his bones. We crossed the field, then the rough ground. We slipped under low branches, stepped over roots. The air felt heavy. I scanned the trees for any sign of the old paths I used to know. They were there, faint but real. My feet found them without thinking. I tried not to look toward where I knew the well was. Not yet. One thing at a time. The The smell reached us before the clearing did. Burned plastic, charred wood, that other smell underneath. When the trees thinned, the officers swore softly. The trailer was there, just like Andrew had said. It was blackened and sagging, its roof half collapsed. The windows were empty holes. Ash littered the ground around it. One of the plastic chairs out front had melted into a warped, twisted shape. The fire had gone out, but the memory of it was everywhere. Jesus, the younger officer muttered. Stay back, the older one said. Could still be hot inside, and structures like this collapse on you when you poke them wrong. He spoke into his radio, giving coordinates, descriptions, words like fatalities and probable homicide. He said scene a lot. My brain snagged on that. Scene. Like a play. Paramedics moved in as far as they dared. One of them shone a flashlight through what used to be the door. His face hardened. There are bodies, he said. 3, I think. Hard to tell. They're pretty far gone. He swallowed. And over here, he added, outside the bathroom window, on the ground. We all turned. There was a shape there, sprawled half on the dirt, half in the dry grass. A man, or what was left of one. He lay on his back, arms flung wide. His neck was a ruin. The blood that had soaked into the earth around him was dark and stiff. The earth had that puckered look like it does after rain, except this wasn't water. The flashlight beam moved across his face. I saw Daniel. His hair was shorter than I remembered. His jawline more stubbled. He had crow's feet that hadn't been there the last time I'd seen him. But it was him. My breath left me in a sharp sound. The cut on his neck went almost ear to ear. It was ragged, like it had been done in a rush. His eyes were half open, staring at nothing. I'd always thought I'd cry when he died. Instead, I just felt hollow. One of the officers glanced at me. You know him? He asked. My brother, I said. My tongue felt thick. The word hung in the cold air. Next of kin? He asked. There's no one else, I said. His expression shifted slightly. Not pity. Something more tired. I'm sorry, he said. It sounded like he'd said it 100 times before. They worked around him then, marking off tape, taking photos, calling in more people. Words like coroner and forensics floated around. Andrew stood a little apart, his blanket pulled tight around him, watching with empty eyes. The older officer turned to him at one point. You said there was a boy, he said. We only see 3 bodies so far. Andrew looked at the trailer, his face twisted. He's inside, he said. Or what's left of him. The officer's jaw clenched. We'll get a team in there, he said, carefully. He turned to me. And you mentioned something about another site, he said. A well. My throat tightened. Yeah, I said. Back there, a little farther in. I can show you. His gaze sharpened. Is this related to your father? He asked. You said earlier he disappeared years ago. I nodded. "I killed him," I said. The officer blinked once. "What?" "I was 10, I said. He was going to kill Andrew. I grabbed the gun. I shot him. Then we dumped his body in the well and covered it up." The words sounded strange out loud. Flat. Too simple for what they were. The officer's face went very still. "Start from the beginning," he said. So I did, or at least I tried. I told him about the trailer my father had in the yard years ago, about the missing person report, about Andrew showing up at the house, about the memories that had come back. I watched his expression shift as I talked. Doubt, disbelief, something like recognition when I said certain things. The word mercy, the bit about my father talking about doing people favors. They looked into him once. The officer said quietly at one point, "Your father, after Keller disappeared, they talked to him. He seemed solid, hardworking, no record. His friends vouched for him. There wasn't enough to push. Then he vanished. We thought he'd run off, or fallen into a river, or just walked away from his life. People do that." He looked at me. "We didn't think to look on his own property," he said. "Not like that." Guilt flickered there, old and heavy. "Show me the well," he said. By the time we got there, the sky had started to lighten in the east. A thin gray seeped between the trees. The world looked washed out. The well was where it had always been. A ring of old stones, half hidden by undergrowth. The boards we'd laid across it all those years ago were warped and rotten. One had collapsed inward, leaving a gap. The smell coming out of it was worse than in my memories. Thicker, more layered, like a dozen different kinds of rot had taken turns living down there. The officer covered his nose and mouth with his hand. "Christ," he muttered. I stood back, my arms wrapped around myself. Every hair on my body felt like it was trying to stand up. They set up lights, ropes, a harness. They lowered a camera down first, its cable snaking into the dark. A tech watched a little screen, his face hard. "Bone fragments," he said. "Cloth. Hard to tell numbers. The water's low. We'll need to pump it out." "Any sign of a full skeleton?" the officer asked tightly. The tech nodded once. "At least one," he said. "Maybe more." I closed my eyes. The officer looked at me. "It's going to take time to sort this out," he said. "But if what you've told us is even half true..." He didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what he meant. Bodies in a well, a burned trailer with more bodies, a dead man with his throat cut, a long missing hitchhiker who hadn't aged enough. It was a lot. I glanced at Andrew. He stood under a tree, the blanket around him like a shroud. He watched the lights by the well with a strange expression. Not relief, not horror, something in between. Something like the moment when a long, ugly story finally reaches its last line. "You'll need to come down to the station," the officer said to both of us later. "Give full statements. There will be questions, likely from more than just us." He meant detectives. Probably some state-level people. Maybe federal. I didn't argue. I was too tired. As we walked back toward the house, my feet dragging through the leaves, I felt a strange pull. Not toward the farm, not toward the police cars and the paperwork and the interviews, toward the woods, toward the well. I knew I wasn't done with that place. Not really. Even if they pumped it dry, even if they pulled every bone and scrap of cloth out and cataloged them, there would still be something left behind down there. Something you couldn't box and label. I also knew something else then, with a cold, heavy certainty. Daniel hadn't just become what he was out of nowhere. You don't wake up one day and decide to be a butcher of families if nothing primed you for it. He'd grown up in the same house I had, walked the same woods, heard the same stories from our father, watched him come home late some nights, smelling of sweat and something metallic, seen him count cash at the table with a faraway look, heard him talk about mercy. I'd shot our father. I'd helped hide the body. I'd cleaned up the mess and gone back to school like nothing happened. I'd left when I was old enough to. I'd gone to the city. I'd done my best to forget. Daniel had stayed. He'd lived with the ghost of the man we'd buried. He'd probably dug through his old things, read his notes, found the same twisted logic and decided it made sense. Decided he had a duty to carry it on, to refine it, to perfect it. He'd turned our father's cruelty into a kind of sick religion. The thought made me feel like I needed to scrub my skin off. I looked at Andrew. He caught my eye. "They're going to ask if I killed your father," he said simply. "And your brother, and that family. They're going to want someone to put it on. Someone who isn't a cop they missed 15 years ago, or a dead man in a well." I nodded. "I know," I said. "I'll tell them the truth," he said. "All of it. Even the parts that make me look bad. There are plenty of those." He smiled without humor. "Do you remember what he said?" he asked. "Who?" I asked, though I knew. "Your father," he said, "when we were moving his body, before we pushed him in. You said he said something once about the well. It came back to me like a whisper. He said this land remembers," I said quietly. "Throws back what you put in." Andrew's smile faded. "Maybe it does," he said. "Maybe that's why I'm still walking around when I shouldn't be. Maybe that's why your brother found his way back here to do the same damn thing." He sighed. "I don't want to be thrown back anymore," he said. "I just want to stop falling." I didn't know what to say to that. We reached the edge of the yard. The house loomed in front of us, its peeling paint pale in the growing light. It didn't look like home. It looked like a place that had been used to do bad things. "You could sell it," Andrew said suddenly, as if he'd read my thoughts. "After all this, let someone else plant corn here, or tear it down and let the grass take it. Put up a plaque. Here is where nobody looked closely enough." "I don't know," I said. It was true. I didn't. We both stood there for a moment, watching the police move around. Voices carried through the morning air. Cameras clicked. Radios buzzed. In a few hours, the place would be crawling with more people. Forensics teams, reporters, maybe curious neighbors. The story would spread. People would talk in the diner, in the church parking lot, at the gas station. They'd say they'd always known something was off about the Millers, that they'd suspected, that it wasn't a surprise. They'd be lying. Or maybe they'd be rewriting their memories the way I'd rewritten mine. People are good at that. I looked toward the tree line one more time. The woods stood there, quiet and dark, like nothing had happened. The earth doesn't care what you do on top of it. It just absorbs and keeps going. I thought about the boy in the trailer, the one who'd stabbed my brother, set the fire, chosen his own kind of mercy. I wondered if he'd ever had a chance to be something else. I wondered if he'd screamed in the flames, or if he'd just closed his eyes and let the heat take him. One of the officers called my name. I turned. They wanted me to sign something, give something, spill something. There would be so many forms. I took a step toward them, then stopped and looked back at Andrew. "What will you do after?" I asked. "After all this is done?" He shrugged. "If they let me go," he said, "I'll go somewhere with no woods, concrete instead of trees. Maybe a big city where the worst thing I'll see is a rat in an alley." He smiled weakly. "I'll try not to stand near any wells," he added. He glanced at the house. "And you?" he asked. I looked at the peeling paint, the sagging porch, the broken upstairs window. Beyond that, the hallway with the family photos, the kitchen table, the couch where I'd tried to sleep. "I don't know," I said again. "Maybe I'll stay. For a while. Make sure they dig up everything that needs digging." He nodded. "Someone should," he said. We stood there a moment longer, two men linked by a night 15 years ago, and another one now. Two people who had tried, in different ways, to cut through a line of cruelty that had started before either of us was born. "You did what you had to," he said again. "Back then, and tonight." I didn't say. So did you. I didn't know if that was true, but I didn't say he was wrong about me either. I walked back to the house. The officer met me on the porch with a clipboard. I signed where he pointed. My hand shook only a little. As the sun finally pushed over the horizon, turning the fields a flat, washed-out gold, I realized something strange. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the woods. I was afraid of the people who walked into them. My father, my brother, Andrew, me. We had put things into that land. Blood, secrets, lies. The earth had taken them, held them, and then almost politely returned them one by one. Here is your missing man. Here is your dead father. Here is your brother, cut open at the throat. Here are all the little mercies you thought you were performing. You can't hide what you are forever. Not out here. The countryside looks quiet, but it keeps score. As I watched the police walk back and forth, their boot prints crisscrossing my family's yard, I wondered what else the land was still holding tight. I wondered what would come up next.